Okay, kids, so I'm going to continue to record a few more things because I find some books that I think are interesting and add some value or provide some new information, newer way of thinking about climate change from a kid's perspective. So, obviously, as I said in the beginning, I'm not a teacher at that level. I teach older kids in college, so I'm not sure, like the teachers are, about how to present the material based on the age of the class they are running. They are experts, I'm not. But this book called Palm Trees at the North Pole, the hot truth about climate change, written by Mark Terhorst and illustrated by Wendy Panders. Seems interesting. It covers lots of topics, and you can see the illustration behind with palm trees growing out of sea ice with a polar bear hopefully just laying back and enjoying the warmth, and maybe there is a rabbit running around, and there is a whale tail sticking out, and another uh, polar bear here, and this may be a whale as well, and so on. We know that, we talked about paleo climate or past climates, and the climate has changed in the past. We had ice ages, we had snowball earth, and so on and so forth. So when the dinosaurs were running around from about 250 million years ago till 65 million years ago, when they got wiped out by the meteorite strike and a combination of things after that, uh, the temperatures were much warmer because this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was much higher, and there was no glaciers, there was no ice, there was no sea ice, and the Arctic had forests, but they were pine trees, not palm trees. So how much warmer do you have to get to actually have palm trees at the North Pole? Obviously, bit of an exaggeration in this case, because you have to imagine how much warmer things can get. Even if we took out all the fossil fuels and burned them, can we get as hot as Venus? Very unlikely, because throughout the Earth's history we haven't been that warm. So, keeping all that in mind, we are just again going to address climate change now in a slightly different way, based on Mark Terhost's writing and Wendy Pander's illustrations. And if this is being taught in a classroom to you by a teacher, then you have a year, let's say, to finish the course, with winter break and summer break. The teacher has to plan how many books can really be used, how many lectures or classes there will be, and so on. Whereas when I put on the YouTube, I can keep on putting more and more podcasts, which means you will have to choose which ones you want to watch. So I just give you the chance to watch as many as you want. So this is a nice recreation or artistic imagination of how the Arctic Circle may have looked when the dinosaurs were around. There is some fern-like vegetation here. There are some pine trees clearly, and maybe some aurora borealis is still happening, the northern lights, and tall trees, and so on and so forth. And there were plant-eating dinosaurs, and there were carnivorous dinosaurs, and so on and so forth. I'm not a dinosaur expert, so you can probably you will know much more about me because you read about them. This is another imagination by an artist from The Guardian. This is from the National Geographic. This is from The Guardian, again showing all kinds of vegetation in the Arctic forest. No permafrost, no sea ice, warm temperatures. How much warmer? Maybe it was much warmer than the global warming we will have by 2100. Let's say we do nothing and we end up warming by about 5 degrees centigrade compared to the Industrial Revolution by 2100. During the time of the dinosaurs, it was probably much warmer than that in the global average. So, do we really want to go back there? Not really. If it was so warm before, why do we worry about it then? Because we were not around when the dinosaurs were around, so there is no guarantee that we can survive such warm temperatures, because the humidity will be very high and we won't even be able to sweat out all the heat, and so on and so forth. Okay, so here is a map just simplified, looking at the Arctic Ocean, the North Pole, somewhere in the Arctic Circle. It's not exactly North Pole there. North Pole would be somewhere there, and you're imagining walruses and whales and polar bear in the water, and all the ice has disappeared, and you can see some octopus here, and Hawaii is down here, and some Viking-like ships floating around, and there is Antarctica with its penguins, and Australia with its kangaroos, and Asia, Europe, North America, South America, Greenland, completely free of glaciers, and the Pacific Ocean with a stingray-like thing, and so on. And the ice would have opened up, and the connection between Alaska and parts of Asia here, the Bering Sea, would be open, and so on and so forth. It is still open today, but at some point it was closed and we had a land bridge, remember? So what is the point? The point is, if you have to get palm trees in the Arctic Circle at North Pole, then you will have to be very warm, because palm trees now grow in the tropics, right? So that's not a joke. You have to get really, really warm. So let's see what we will learn from this book. You should probably read this part first. So we are going to look at snowballs and volcanoes. We have already discussed this a little bit in the past. We've had volcanic eruptions and snowball earth episodes where the snow and ice covered the earth almost completely, and air bubbles and tree rings that we use from the glaciers and the trees to figure out past climates, and melt water and heat waves. I went in the wrong direction, sorry. After snowballs and volcanoes, I should go here, erratics and mammals. So we'll learn about the ice ages and so on from the past we called paleoclimate, right? And air bubbles and tree rings are the way in which we get past data. We estimate past climates. Remember, chimneys and cow farts come along and tell us how we produce so much greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere, and we have meltwater and heat waves happening as a consequence of all our activities, and then we'll have calamities and disaster. We are already having calamities and disasters, and the pica and the cephalopods. So we'll look at how various species other than us are being affected by the consequences for nature of climate change that is caused by us. So hydrogen and insect burgers. Are we going to find solutions and find energy that is carbon free, like hydrogen, which will produce water instead of CO2? Will we eat insect burgers to get our proteins instead of growing cows and destroying the environment and so on? Will we have windmills and water power so that renewable energy, solar, wind, hydrogen, windmills, and water power, wave energy can keep growing? And oh yes, it is. Oh no, it isn't. So we are people who keep on doubting science. We keep on saying maybe climate is not changing, or climate has always changed, so why should we worry? And of course there are consequences and there are risks. So it's all about how we perceive the risks. Okay, so we'll come back and continue about what we should read first. So this says you should probably read this first. That's what it said here, which means we are first going to read a little bit of an introduction to the book, and then we are going to get into each of these chapters. So I expect to have a fair number of podcasts, but remember, you can choose any section Each section, the beginning sections, are just introductions to energy balance, the solar system, and so on and so forth. And then we had chapter 10, which is full of details about what is climate change from Gail Herman's book. And this section 11 is going to have all the details from this book called Palm Trees at the North Pole, the hot truth about climate change. Okay, so we'll come back and meet in the next podcast then. Okay, see you, children.